As people leaders, you've probably had your requests for culture building programs often turned down because the potential benefits are perceived as soft or intangible. So in this video, I'm going to show you the 7 ways to effectively measure the impact of your culture building initiatives. Hi, I'm Skay, one of the co-founders here at Guusto. And on this channel, we help HR leaders like you shape great workplace culture so your people get to do the best work of their lives. Measuring workplace culture may seem like a difficult task, as it's often perceived as this fluffy thing that's too abstract to quantify. But this is a false belief. While it's true that culture is complex and multifaceted, there are several simple tools and techniques that can be used to assess it. Now, a lot of organizations say they have good culture, but do they really know? Some are actually afraid to measure their culture because it may reveal areas that are lacking and requiring significant changes, which could be intimidating and very disruptive. However, it's important to remember that measuring culture is actually a critical step to improving it. We measure everything else in business, so why wouldn't we measure this? By understanding the strengths and weaknesses of your workplace culture, you can make targeted improvements and work to create a better, more positive work environment for your employees. Also, measurement helps to remove bias. It shows you how you're actually doing and allows you to make better decisions. And lastly, if you can measure it, you can show the impact, generate support from leadership, get more budget, grow your programs, and drive even more results. Culture is more important now than ever. Millennials and Gen Xers are the largest cohort in the workforce, and they're looking to work for companies with great workplace culture, especially if they'll be working on distributed, remote, or hybrid teams. Moreover, the speed at which information is being exchanged in the world makes it really easy for competitors to copy products, marketing strategies, sales tactics. But your culture, the way that people behave and do things in your organization, is extremely difficult to copy, which makes culture the only sustainable advantage. Now, the first thing to do before choosing how to measure your culture is to understand your leadership's overall strategy and what metrics are going to be most important to them. So with that said, here's 7 options for you to consider. Number 1, surveys. Now, we could do a whole video just on surveys, and most organizations actually do a pretty good job here, so I'll try to keep this brief. The first type of survey is the engagement survey. We recommend doing this on a quarterly or maybe semi-annual basis, but definitely not annual. It's too long. It's common practice to have an ENPS question in there, or Employee Net Promoter Score. So this is how likely is someone to recommend that their friend come work at the organization. This is a good kind of overall assessment of how the culture is doing, but it doesn't really kind of get into the why. So here are kind of 7 questions that you might want to consider adding to your survey. Do you feel your opinions are valued by your team? Do you feel recognized for your work? Do you receive fair and objective feedback from your manager on your performance? Is there someone in a position of influence in the company who is invested in your growth and development? Do you feel safe to share and test your ideas? Do you feel connected with some colleagues? Do you have the flexibility and support you need to manage personal care obligations? The second type of survey that you may want to do is just a simple pulse survey that you run either weekly or monthly, and it doesn't need to be anonymous or go to everybody at the organization at once, but rather just a handful of people at a time. You can ask some simple questions like, is this a place where you can do your best work? Or do you have any suggestions on how the people team could improve the culture here? This will help you to keep a pulse of the organization and get some great ideas on how to improve the culture. A third and final survey would be to provide employees with a simple way to submit anonymous feedback at any time throughout the year. Now, with any survey, it's important to communicate back to employees that you've received the feedback and how you plan on kind of actioning on it. If employees feel like the feedback kind of falls on deaf ears, they'll stop giving it. Okay, number 2, interviews. Now, these could come in the form of exit interviews when people are leaving their position, or stay interviews, so having conversations with employees staying in their position, or even focus groups, so bringing together a number of employees for a group discussion. Now, you'll want to ask similar questions to those in your engagement surveys to gather some quantitative results, but it's also a great opportunity to ask some broader qualitative questions like, what do you like about the company culture? What do you not like? And these will give you some insight and ideas on how to improve your company culture. Number 3 is event participation. So these are things like social events, volunteering, lunch and learns. Now, we can measure attendance as a start, but we can make people show up to these things. So it's actually better to measure engagement at the event. For example, how many questions or comments in the chat did we receive during a lunch and learn? Number 4 is program utilization. So here we're looking at things like our benefits program to see how often they're being used, or our conference and L&D budgets to make sure our people are constantly learning and developing their skills, or our paid time off usage. So here at Guusto, we actually transitioned to unlimited vacation, and it was key to work with our managers to model taking healthy breaks and then measure that all employees were following suit. Hey, I hope you're enjoying this video. If you are, feel free to hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss our next ones. Number 5 is employer brand. And so here we can look at the number of posts on social media platforms like LinkedIn talking about the organization and the amount of engagement those posts have received in the form of likes and comments. We could also look at the number of reviews and the overall rating on sites like Glassdoor. Number 6 is recognition. And this one's really great as it actually allows you to get real-time insight into your company culture on an ongoing basis. How often are people being recognized? What's your manager budget utilization rate? What's your employee participation rate? Is recognition inclusive? For example, are more men being recognized than women? What values are being recognized? And every piece of recognition actually comes with some additional comments that provide insight into your company culture. And lastly, number 7, business KPIs. And so here we want to look at things like productivity, absenteeism, employee retention rates, employee referral rates, which are better than surveys because they tell you how often people actually refer their friends. We'll also want to look at revenue growth and customer renewal rates, customer NPS scores. Ultimately, your culture programs should help the business succeed, and this is where leadership is going to focus a lot of their attention. Again, measuring culture doesn't need to be a daunting task. Use a crawl, walk, run approach where you pick just a handful of metrics and start collecting the data. In many cases, it's often better to set an improvement goal rather than an absolute number. For example, we'd like to improve our participation rate by 5% every quarter, rather than shooting for a specific 25% participation out of the gate. Then sharing metrics and results with your managers can help to generate more buy-in and can create healthy competition and be a reinforcing loop. We actually share all of our participation data at our all-hands meeting and show department leads how they stack up against each other to help drive more recognition. To recap, it's important to measure your workplace culture to ensure that it remains positive and healthy, and to help you secure support from leadership to invest in more culture programs. Again, the 7 ways to measure culture were surveys, interviews, event participation, program utilization, employer brand, recognition, and business KPIs. Again, starting small with your culture programs, measuring their impact, making adjustments, and showing results will help you build a thriving culture. Now, if you need something quickly, recognition is actually one of the best ways to measure your culture. It's an easy program to launch and allows you to get some numbers and anecdotes on the board to share with your leadership team. Check out the link to our ROI calculator that can help you get the conversation started. Hey everyone, if you found this video helpful and you'd like more great culture building content, make sure to subscribe and hit that bell icon so you don't miss future uploads. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to recognize someone for a great job today. Mucho gusto!